All right, welcome everybody. I am Pado. With me is Joseki, and we're going to be doing another episode of Bloodborn here. I'm going to get to ask him a few questions and learn a little bit more about him. So to start it off, Joseki, how you doing today?
I am great. How are you, Pato?
I am excellent. So how did you get into tactical turn-based gaming or CCG gaming?
So let me think here. So in high school, no, eighth grade, my buddy had in his garage a massive box of like super old Magic the Gathering cards, right? So we did the only sensible thing we could, which was we had five of us. So we divvied all the cards up, one color for each player, and made these like 500 card monstrosity decks and played each other for a summer, which was pretty fun. It was a good time, but it wasn't exactly how do I put it? It wasn't exactly like competitive, right? It was just like purely casual, like purely fun. And then eventually we realized like there's like a pro tour for this. There's like cool stuff we could do. And so we started going to like the local Magic card shop and like playing in little tournaments and stuff. And of course we got wrecked like over and over again. But we had fun. Like we were like our own little group or whatever.
Yeah.
And they all kind of eventually quit playing, but I kept going to play because I really enjoyed just sort of getting better at the game and learning more about it. And my first tournament, major tournament, I played. It was a freshman in high school, and that was pretty sweet. I also feel bad for this guy because I'm playing an Amara healer.
On your third turn or whatever?
On my third turn, yeah. My bad, dude. So, yeah, I mean, I started playing, and from there, I actually like got top 16 at my first ever major tournament. And I think if I had scrubbed out of that tournament and like just gotten bodied, I probably wouldn't have like wanted to keep going. But it was really encouraging that I did well in the tournament. And the rest is kind of history. I played Magic for 9 years in total. I've been playing recently because Duelist is pretty sweet, and I also played some Hearthstone for a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So how'd you get into Duelist? How'd you find that?
So Deceptical and I go way back. I've been friends with Deceptical for like 6 years. I was his roommate for a year or so in Madison, Wisconsin, and him and I have always sort of been like on and off in contact. And I think I'm gonna play a second Amara healer.
I was about to say that he's gonna start making that face a lot more here in a second.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I just started like talking to Deceptical and being like, "What have you been up to, man?" We hadn't like talked in a while, and he was like, "Oh, I like backed this game on Kickstarter, and I got a key."
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
this guy, I feel really bad.
This is like literally like the most painful game if you're a Songhai player ever.
Yeah. So yeah, double Mana Wisp into double Amara healer. Ugh. So yeah, and like he was like, oh, we haven't played a game together in like a long time because like we like pretty much when I was living in Madison, like we played everything together, League of Legends, like World of Warcraft, like pretty much like everything we played together. It was just one of those things. You have a roommate who's a gamer who likes the same games as you, so. And he's like, let's play this game. Like it's really sweet, and you liked Scrolls. Which I do like, and he's like, this game is like way sweeter, I promise. And I was like, all right, sure, let's try it out,
Yeah.
And I started playing it and loved it right away once I got my alpha invite, and yeah, it was just like kind of history from there. I mean, he was just nice enough. Like he had like a queue of people who wanted that second key, and he was just like, "You can have it, John." And I was like, "Sweet," because and it was also perfect timing because I was on winter break from school, so I had literally nothing to do.
Yeah, so you've been playing since like December and stuff, right?
Yeah. I've been playing for quite almost as long as you could have been playing, I guess. So yeah, and I just sort of like kept up with that, and Jason and I have been playing Duelist together pretty much. I played the third Amara healer. I'm gonna give Onyx Bear Seal taunt and +1/+1.
Just because it's like so awesome.
Look at his attack animation. It's the best attack animation in the game. He picks up the bamboo. I got interrupted. He picks up a shoot of bamboo, bites it off, and then beats him with it. Yeah, but So I mean, like Jason got me a key is the short version, but it was also just sort of serendipitous because we had just started talking a lot again at that point.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So I see you playing Vitruvian here. Is like Vitruvian your favorite faction, or like what faction do you find yourself gravitating towards?
Um, so players who like know me, like throughout, like I have a lot, like historically, I have tons and tons of friends. Like I've traveled a lot for games, like tournaments and stuff. People know me as the guy who likes to do the weird stuff.
Yeah,
So don't get me wrong, an extremely competitive player, or at least I have been. Less so these days. You know, I'm getting older. I can't compete with the youngins or whatever. And it's I like to win, but I very much like winning on my own terms.
yeah,
So it's like I'm playing right now Vitruvian Arcanists, which I don't know if there's another single player who has a deck like mine who's playing the game currently. But Vitruvian, yeah, I really like Vitruvian. They're really fun. I also just like factions that support lots of different stuff.
yeah,
I like to play, like, for example, I like playing blue decks in Magic because you can play them really slow and controlling, and you can play them really aggressive, and sort of like tempo-y and stuff. So I kind of like that sort of play style, I guess, where you're doing something that's not standard, but you've practiced with it enough and you understand the metagame well enough that you can make that non-standard thing work. And I think that's always really exciting.
So, obviously, it's clear that you have Dev in your name. So let's talk about at least like that part of your journey. Like, what is it like now working with Counterplay Games?
So Counterplay Games. So it's really funny. I'll like give you a little bit of the backstory on how it sort of happened. I am in college, at a dinky liberal arts college with 500 students in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's a purely Socratic discussion-based program. 4 years math, 4 years science, 4 years literature and history. So it's sort of weird. Sort of a weird little program. Definitely off the beaten path. And they do this thing where, since the program that I do is so weird and like non-conventional, they offer stipends and scholarships for people who go into tech and people who go into internships after they graduate in more technical fields. So I started talking to Keith at one point or another because I used to be a community manager for a game called Feria. And in that process of being a community manager for them, I definitely learned a lot about the kinds of mistakes that devs can make with their communities that can really ruin it. And Fairy is a game where they had a really great start, like a really explosive start. Like they had like thousands of players on their server, like logged on, which is really good for a small indie game from a team that no one's ever heard of.
Oh yeah.
So, but they made a lot of mistakes. They were mistakes that I don't know if I could have foreseen either. Like, I'm totally not blaming them. They're like, this is their first game, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I loved Duelist so much at that point by the time I started talking to Keith that I really didn't want them to make those same mistakes. And they were just mistakes that anyone could make if you weren't, like, totally on it, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just had him. I just wanted to talk to Keith and be like, you know, you can do some really cool stuff with the game. And dude, this guy's like comboing out.
Yeah,
like,
he's like all of my hand now.
Yeah, well, I have Science, Stars Fury, so
yeah, it's a good response.
That's so yeah, and I really wanted to talk to him because I didn't want Duelist to go that way, right? Where they had a huge community, things were going great, and then whoops, we made a couple of little mistakes, lost some of our players. Whoops, made another mistake, lost half our players, and then from that point, it's just mass exodus, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted them to sort of like, I just wanted to give Keith my experiences basically with that, doing community management for another small indie card game.
Yeah.
And he was really receptive to it, and he really, like, we had a great conversation, and Keith is like total badass. Can't say that enough. And yeah, eventually I was like, hey, so this is a long shot and I know it, but I can do an internship with you guys because my school provides scholarships for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it'll give me a good chance to learn, and then you can kind of see if I got the chops or whatever. And he was super open to it. Everyone on the team was super open to it, and it just sort of got developed from there. And I will say that working with them has been amazing. As someone who's literally, since my earliest memory is I'm playing Mario Brothers in my living room, right, at the age of 4.
Yeah.
So it's like, for me, it's kind of never been a question if I wanted to make games. So
yeah.
it's, and yeah, I want to make games, and what that means when you're 5 is very different than what it means when you're 15, and very different than what it means when you're 25, right?
Yeah.
So it's been a really good experience for me in terms of just having an eye-opening sort of little adventure where I can be like, oh, I understand all the working pieces and working parts that go into this to make it, like, to actually make the. What does it actually mean to make a game, right?
Yeah.
Being able to see that firsthand is, an experience that I like couldn't possibly have gotten any other way, and I don't know if there's a better group of people to have gotten that experience with.
Yeah, I can definitely say I've had a lot of positive interactions so far with that team, and definitely all of them are passionate about the game too. So it's really cool to see that, like, in everything they do, whether it's like up late night crunching coding or like getting something done on the forums or like responding to stuff. Like, it's pretty amazing how much time these guys make available to like put into Duelist, right?
Yeah.
So what does a typical day for you look like working with Counterplay?
So right now I do part-time work for them, simply because I'm still in school. I just finished my undergraduate thesis, and I have an oral defense, and then I also work a few days a week as a system administrator, which is basically a fancy way of saying I look at servers all day. So that's what I do. Like, that's my day-to-day life outside of Counterplay, and that's like a lot of time because I have to go to class, I have to do this, I have to do that. Yeah. So I do a lot of late nights getting things done, and and it varies, and it's like I would say I'm like 66% Keith, 33% Eric is probably the best way of putting it, where 66% like community design, community responding to emails, production, just sort of like figuring all that out and like sort of getting stuff done with Keith directly.
Yeah.
And then the other part of the time is I'm communicating with Eric, doing things like, crunching numbers, gathering feedback so that he can make more informed design choices, things like that.
Oh, right on. Yeah. So, like, is there anything like in the game currently that, like, you could say that, like, hey, like, I had a part in like this tweak, whether good or not, or like this change here or there?
Let me think. I've given so much feedback that it's sort of hard to say. I've had so many conversations about like design with Eric and other people. It's kind of all blurs together. So basically, all the Vitruvian changes were a big push for me. The recent Vitruvian changes that we've seen, Time Maelstrom being a major culprit, Enslave. Those are the two big ones. I have such a huge background playing competitive card games, and it's like I know how good take an additional turn is, and I know how unfun take an additional turn can be, right? For the person not taking the extra turn, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
I've had a lot of players take infinite turns against me in card games over the years, and I just sort of like, you just do the face in hand, put your hand down that you're playing with, and just watch them and make sure they don't cheat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and then 5 minutes go by, and they're like, "All right, so deal 4,000 million to 7 jillion damage to you," and you're like, "Okay, game 2."
Exactly.
So I've had that experience a lot. I've had the sort of get infinite comboed experience. I've had the and let me put it this way: I'm not against stuff that's like very powerful and very combo-y. I'm just against it when it's the other person clearly is like has to watch something happen for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And a full turn in Duelists can be like a minute and a half. So you watch someone it's like it breaks up the action so dramatically, right? So, and I'm not against the card itself. It's more just like I felt like as soon as turn 6, and if you play Mana Wisp, which you probably do in Vitruvian, it could be as turn 5 or 4 even, where you're starting to take additional turns. And that just feels really like blah,
Yeah.
Time Maelstrom was one I pushed for really hard, for sure. And Enslave was a combination of players. Your general has to be next to it thing, I believe, was a Deceptical idea from back in the day. But that needing to be more, for sure. But I don't have any original designs in the game. I just have I've been just working with Eric on collecting feedback and trying to come up with solutions to get things going.
So what would be your advice to new players that are getting into duels? You've been playing for a while. I'm sure you have a bunch of nuggets for like bad habits that
Sure.
you've had or things that you did wrong when you first jumped into it. So share some of those with us.
Sure. So, what's some good ones? Uh, so I think the biggest one is going to be deck building, at least for me. Um, Deck building is really hard. Like it's annoyingly difficult, even if you're a new player, because it's hard to tell if you're just bad or you don't know how to build a deck, or if your opponents all have been playing for so long that there's no possible chance you could win. Like there's all these like angles by which you actually just don't know what the problem is, right?
Yeah.
You don't know when you first start playing what needs to get done to sort of, I guess, like start winning, I guess is probably the easiest way of saying it. And problematically, Duelist is a complex game, and card games are complex games that have a lot of factors. There's the at the very high end, there's a deep like psychological factor to card games, right? Where it's like you think that you have this sweet card, and I'm playing around it, which can get in the way. And then there's sort of the mid-level play where you have a good deck, and you're trying to just figure out how to play your deck the best you can. And then so there's just like lots of angles, I guess. And I think for a new player, the most important thing is spending some time paying attention to what kinds of cards people play and trying to figure out why. Duelist is a game with a lot of synergies. There are tons and tons of cards that do all sorts of different things, and it's really worthwhile to just spend some time and be like, okay, so if you're not familiar with the basic archetypes like rush decks or control decks, like what those concepts mean, it's definitely good to familiarize yourself with that, and then also familiarize yourself with generally what cards people play. So like if you start off and you're just like, I want like 3 Piercing Mantis and 3 Swamp Entangler, and that's something that you might do as a new player, it's worthwhile to sort of investigate why you want to play the cards you play and why other people might not be playing the cards you're playing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. So would you say like as a new player, like Sandbox is super helpful, like those
Yeah.
kind of resources, like
Yeah, definitely. And also just having I think this has probably been said a million times by many people, just being willing to lose, like be willing to experiment, just like see what's out there, right? Because I can tell you from all the years of playing card games I have looked at a set of 300 Magic cards, and I know it doesn't even matter. I know for a fact that there are things I'm going to miss, right? I could stare at that Magic set for all time, and you could open up the Duelist collection and stare at it forever and try and figure out every interaction possible. And the truth is you're not going to be able to. So just be willing to like see what people do and experiment and lose, and then use the sandbox and try and create little combos and do fun stuff like that, and just spend some time figuring out what's good before you worry about if you're playing good, I think.
yeah, for sure. That's actually some really good advice.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter. You're never going to win if you don't understand why cards are good or what cards are good, because your deck's going to be kind of like a hodgepodge,
Yeah. So what do you? So you mentioned like pretty much no one plays Arcanus Vitruvian. Like, what do you like about the deck? Like, what works for you? What's the strength of this deck?
All right, so the deck's really funny, first of all. I like funny decks, and like I like to do something, and then my opponent's just like, "Are you serious right now?" Like that's the kind of reaction I like. So for me, I like Vitruvian Arcanist is because it has a lot of really bizarre niche synergies. So, for example, I have a Portal Guardian in play right now, and I have an Illusionist in my hand. So that's a combo, right? That's a weird combo that you don't often see.
Yeah.
So if you have a Portal Guardian in play and you put Prismatic Illusionist in play, who says whenever you cast a spell, you get an additional minion, and then you start cranking out spells, like pouring out all the spells in your hand, you can actually make your Portal Guardian have like 6 or 7 power in one turn with that combo. So yeah, I just think that's like stuff like that is just really sweet. So I'm gonna do it right now because it's just awesome.
Way too awesome.
Yeah, I mean, what choice do I really have?
Oh yeah, Superman
so-
Accords, you're getting in there.
Yep. So now, so now I've made this little army behind my Portal Guardian, but also my Portal Guardian gets to like slap face, killing both his like just like that. Like he had 1 power and now he has 5, and I can just use him in that way, you know. So I like stuff like that a lot. I also like the more obvious stuff that is just like, oh my god, he's like doing this crazy big synergy and he has 1,000,000 units on the table and stuff. So that's really why I like Vitruvian Arcanist the most, I think, is just like, and also like there are other ways to go about it, right? Like if you were playing a more aggressive Vitruvian deck, you could play Portal Guardian and Jack's True Sight together, right?
Oh yeah.
So you could play Portal Guardian, and then your Jax gives you 5 minions, and then instantly give your Portal Guardian 5 attack, which is pretty cool. So I like that. I also just like decks that aren't very cheesy, decks that like I feel like I like to feel like I won because I built my deck well.
Yeah.
More than I like to feel like I won because I outplayed them.
Yeah.
Which I guess is probably not the majority of people. Most people like to think that it was their skill that like won the battle or whatever.
Yeah.
I would say I definitely prefer just winning because the preparation that happened before the game is what won me that game. Is how I tend to think about it.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, I think it's overlooked a lot too. That like, especially in games like this, like building a good deck actually is a lot of part of it. I think people get lost in the fact they're like, oh well, you like net decked, right, or something like that. When really like there's a lot of stuff that if you just keep following net decks, like no one would have basically played this, right, if you just followed net decks. Like if like Saracen has a great article on like all the type of decks you can play, but like you're not gonna find this deck there necessarily, right? Like maybe you lead there somewhere, but you also building this deck and then like you play it out enough to get to work, like that's actually its own reward and actually a skill really when you think about it when it comes down to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's and that's one thing I love about the card game genre, and that's why I like tend to encourage people to be explorative, is just because you can, in Duelist, you can be the kind of player you want to be, right? So I have the most fun when I'm being creative and other people can see that I'm being creative. Saracen, for example, has the most fun when other people can see that he's really good at the game.
Yeah.
And that's fine too. That's just like another way of playing. So I have like a lot of respect for all the different ways you could approach it, but that's definitely a piece of advice I like to give people, is to really find your niche. Find what makes you happy, find what like gives you, find what makes you like reel back in your chair and be like, yeah, like got him, like. So, and for me, that's being creative, but it definitely depends on what kind of person you are, for sure.
So what is this deck like? Like, what's like your bane to go against in this deck? Like, what's like the matchup where you're like, crap, like this is gonna be an uphill battle.
I really don't like playing against Abyssian. They're the hardest faction. Abyssian and Songhai are probably the hardest factions to play against because it's hard to get your stuff rolling, to get your deck moving. I messed up because I replaced later. Damn it. Well, I'll still do this. So I'll do this just to demonstrate that all my stuff has a lot of health now, which is sweet. And this is pretty cool. And now this is the point of the game where I can actually retreat my general and just march my Doom army forward until they die.
Go, Doom army, go.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really like it's hard. And I think the thing is I wouldn't say I dislike playing against those kinds of decks either. Like I enjoy all the different interactions that all the factions have. I just sort of like against Abyssian, between like Demonic Lure and Shadow Creep and Dark Transformation, which just got buffed, and like like all these cards, it's just like mind-numbingly hard to like get a minion to stay on the board, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then there's these kinds of situations right now where I'm at 9, and he has a mask, so I have to like do something here or I just lose. And by do something I mean march all my stuff forward and play all my stuff.
Get in there, stuff.
go stuff, and then yeah. So if he kills me this turn, I'll be sad, but it's entirely possible. And yeah, so it's just like they attack the deck from like Lionar and Vitruvian, tend to and Magmar tend to like want to have stuff on the board, right?
Yes.
Like they care a lot about the stuff that's on the board, whereas Abyssian and Songhai can play a game that doesn't revolve around having stuff on the board. It revolves around running away and kiting and doing all sorts of other silly things and burning you out and whatnot. Oh my god, I need to draw some good, or I might just be dead. But yeah, so there's like,
there's a chance.
there's a chance that I just kill him here too. Let me mulligan a card. No, I drew a Crystal Wisp. Damn it.
Crystal Wisp was not the card.
Yeah, it was definitely not the card. So yeah, I don't know. I just sort of I like playing against Songhai too because there's situations like this, right? Songhai's like the only faction where I could be like crushing on board, but I have not yet won the game, right?
Yeah.
And I really think that's cool. And I just misplayed too, so there's that. All right, I'm probably dead. So yeah. Oh, do you know what the coolest way to kill someone is, by the way? If he had Silhouette Tracer here and he just teleported over and punched me.
That's actually my favorite kill at Songhai. Or like, yeah. my favorite way to always finish people, and I always try to do this, is have my general like finish the game basically.
Yeah.
If I can.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's one thing too. Is like I very much like to embrace.
Who we replaced. Huh? You might have a chance.
Am I dead? This game's really close. I think I would actually consider him to have gotten unlucky if he doesn't kill me here, because I'm at 2. He could just have a bunch of minions though. So
yeah.
He's just trying to figure out if there's any way to be alive with all the minions. Yeah, it's sort of fun, right? When it's like when you're designing for a card game, you can't design for all the things that people are gonna do or want to do, right?
Yeah.
You can't say that like this is a perfect little snow globe as a designer, and I can look at it at any time and count all the perfect, pretty little snowflakes that happen because I made it that way, right? That's not how these games work.
Yeah.
As evidenced by the dude who just did the longest Hearthstone turn of all time recently. It was a 43-hour turn of Hearthstone. It involved copying spells over and over and over and over again. It was crazy. When they made those cards, they did not design the 43-hour turn that takes like a very specific, statistically impossible set of circumstances to create, right?
Yeah.
I don't actually know if I can kill him. Oh no, I can kill him. And I think that's what's kind of the beauty of trying to enjoy every matchup for what it offers, is that it's like, it's kind of like a clash of like, I'm trying to play the game my way and you're trying to play it your way, and we're gonna see who's like, who's got it,
Yeah.
who can like outclass the other one with using that strategy, and that's just super fun. So.
You did. I will say this. You did miss style points by not using Rasha's and just letting the blade kill him on his turn. But it's up to you. That's my favorite part of my head. That's the other one. It's like kill the general if I can, or have them kill themselves with Hamon Bladeseeker. The betrayal is real.
I really wish Hamon Bladeseeker. This is like a personal opinion, of course. I really wish it like dealt 2 to both generals.
Yeah.
Just because like. It would be like there'd be so much more tension, right? Like it'd be like, I don't know. Then you would like, because there are games, right, where you're like, all right, so like you play Hammer Bladeseeker, Silhouette Tracer away, put a taunt in front of my guy, like I'm gonna make that thing deal damage to you, or like figure out how to. But I think it'd be cooler if it had a more mutual approach, because that's always the kind of the funny thing, right? Like Flameblood Warlock has a quote unquote downside, right?
Yeah.
But the person who's going to play the Flameblood Warlock is going to be the person who benefits much, much more from that card having hit play. So.
All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Cool.
But yeah, so do you have any shout outs you want to throw out here before we finish up?
Just the usual crew, I guess. Saracen and Quincy and I have been friends for a couple years now. They're awesome. Deceptical and I have been friends for 6 years. He knows how awesome he is. And, shout outs to Counterplay, of course, because they're all awesome and they're all super good people trying to make a super awesome game for us. And that is really hard these days. So I have a lot of respect for anyone who sort of puts themselves out there and puts themselves on the line to make an interactive experience for people when there's no guarantee it'll work out,
Yeah, for
But
sure.
and I think they're doing everything they can, and our community keeps growing and keeps getting more awesome. And I keep getting surprised by all just there will be those kinds of days where you're playing Duelist where you kind of feel like you haven't figured out oh, you're playing the Songhai whatever deck, you're playing the Lionar whatever deck, and then someone kind of surprises you, right?
Yeah.
And I keep getting surprised, right? Which is for me a really good sign, So.
Definitely.
So shout outs to everyone, basically, is what I'm trying to say, as lame as that is. And shout outs to Paddo for making these videos. So
Yeah, well, right on, man. Well, thanks for taking your time out of your busy day to join us, and I look forward to seeing Duelist improve, and hopefully see some more cool stuff from you coming our way.
yep, absolutely. Thank you.